Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. It is indeed Taco Tuesday. You got me some sound effect? Hit me some of that Taco Tuesday right there. Just nail it.
Could mean at that point in time inherent.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Taco Tuesday, dude.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco
Tuesday. Big Rig's got way too many sound effects now. He can't even figure out which button is which.
I got confused for a second.
How many sound effect buttons do you have over there?
There's like probably about 20.
At least.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at some point we need to have a name that sound effect, like just, which one is this? We call it Jack Ashbury. Which one is this? We call it, anyway.
There's a lot over here, yeah.
There's a lot over there. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good.
All right. We got a good show later on, right?
Yeah, I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to it. So, hey, listen up at 3 o'clock today. Our buddy Scott Buttram from the Trustful Tribune's calling in. He and I were texting like early this morning, and I said, man, you just got to come on and talk about this. This is crazy. So we're going to talk to Scott Buttram from Trustful Tribune about some stuff that I'll tell you more about here momentarily. That's at 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock, Chairman John Wall from the Alabama Republican Party, he will be on the air with us. So Chairman Wall is going to give us his thoughts on where we are headed right now with Trump picking a vice presidential candidate. There's a lot of talk. There's a whole lot of talk, like speculations are abounding. So yeah, we got John Wall, Chairman Alabama Republican Party today at 4 o'clock. And then I got a triple dipper, so hit that one.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first one out the gate, I'm calling it State of Unions. Not State of the Union, just State of Unions. The state of Alabama, are we about to become the state of unions? Did you hear what happened at UAB with the football team yesterday? Is the football team going to unionize? All right, we'll talk about that with Scott Buttram and opine on it too from various news outlets. That's number 1, Triple Dipper, State of Unions. Number 2, the Veep Stakes. Who's going to be the Veep? Who's going to be the Veep for the man? I don't know. There's multiple choices, and I got a whole rack of stuff right here, paper to rattle, to tell you all about what speculations are about who's going to be the Veep, to include, is it possible that it's going to wind up being Ron DeSantis? We'll see. Veep Stakes, number 2, Triple Dipper. And then number 3, sometimes we got to look overseas, right? We got to see what's happening elsewhere. Biden's foreign policy. Well, actually, does he have one? I don't know. He's like Mr. Reactionary, Mr. Screw Things Up. Biden's foreign policy is to the point that I've had to call number 3 on the Triple Dipper, Biden burning bridges. That's where we are. He is burning bridges the world over right now. People who have been our allies and our partners for years are looking at us sideways like they can't figure out what is going on. Some of them are actually turning on us. Biden burning bridges, that's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, listen, I'm going to jump over here to the opening monologue, the Right Side Way monologue. Every single day, I'll remind you guys, Southern Immediate Care is a chain of clinics that covers a huge swath of ground across our overly broad listening area. Southern Immediate Care with places like clinics in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 6 more locations around the Birmingham area. They are indeed the daily sponsors of the Right Side Way monologue, and we are glad of it. So the other day, I was at my office at the law firm, and something was frustrating me. If you've ever run your own business, you know that no matter how big or small your shop is, there's always something that needs to be set right or dealt with or responded to. I like to say that sometimes I can't get my work done because I'm too busy getting my work done. You know what I mean. But in that moment of aggravation the other day, I looked at the beautiful big, large windows that I have in my office that look out over a golf course, and I suddenly realized how dirty the windows were. I mean, like, really dirty. I had been so busy that I hadn't even noticed, but as I stood there catching my breath, trying to get over my frustration with something, I realized that the beauty of my office was clouded up by dust and pollen that had set in. So, you know what? I just stopped what I was doing. I got some Windex and paper towels, and I made those windows shine. And they look good. And I told one of the great folks who works with me that, I can't always control the world around me, but I can make sure my windows are clean. And it's true. Look, I can't fix it all, but there's things that I can do to take the best care of what I've got, right? I mean, my granny, bless her heart, she had a humble home in West Birmingham where she lived for half a century. It was a modest little 2-bedroom home in a factory community, no air conditioning, but her kitchen was always clean and her porch was always swept. She couldn't fix everything, but she could fix some things, and she did. Recently, I heard a quote on TV that just kind of set well with me. Charlene and I love to find a show that we can enjoy together. We've watched every season of Blue Bloods, but recently we started watching Chicago Fire. Pretty solid characters there, and one of them is a guy named Chief Wallace Bowden, played by Eamon Walker, the character who runs Firehouse 51 in the show. In one of those episodes, he was talking about some life issues that he was facing, and somebody advised him that he might want to back off on something. And his response was, "It's better to die on your feet than to live on your knees." Wow. I mean, think about it. Better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. That just got all over me, and that quote has now been added to my notebook of favorite quotes. But he wasn't talking about something that would actually kill him. He was talking about taking the reins on things and not just rolling over in life. We can't always control things that go on around us. We can't always make the hurt stop. We can't always make the naysayers change their ways. But what we can control is how we react to the world around us. Chief Bowden was basically saying that. He was saying that how we respond says much about who we are. And I try to live that way. I do. Some might call it bullheaded or stubborn, but I tend to call it stick-to-itiveness. There's a word for you, stick-to-itiveness. I can't make the long trip shorter, but I can take the next step. I can't make the rain stop falling, but I can fix the leak. I can't get everything done, but I can do what's in front of me to the best of my ability. It's an attitude that we have to have. If we're going to be successful in life, we have to have that attitude. We have to, because life will throw curveballs and drop a crisis or three on us in any given time. But if we've laid up a lifetime of dealing with the small stuff, we're going to be better prepped for the big stuff. I know it sounds simple, but think about it. There's a reason why the Army sends somebody to basic training before it sends them to advanced training, because there's small things that need to be in place first. And when crisis comes, it's the small stuff that kicks in, like the muscle memory that gets us through. If you've ever built a lifetime of dealing with small stuff, then you're going to be more likely to stay on your feet when the big stuff comes. I remember at Army Ranger School many moons ago, there were days I wanted to quit. In fact, most days I wanted to quit multiple times a day. Guys to my left and right were dropping out due to injuries or just not making the standards. 450 people tried to get into my class. 250 made it past day one. 98 graduated. The constant lack of sleep to the point of hallucination, the constant lack of food to the point that I lost 30 pounds, the constant harassment, the movement, the physical challenges, the mountains, the swamps, the deserts, the parachute jumps, rappelling off of cliffs, patrolling at all hours. At one point, I had to recycle what was, in my opinion, the worst phase of all, the swamp phase in the swamps of North Florida. Y'all, the idea of doing the swamps twice just made me physically ill. I'm not going to lie. The notion of repeating the swamp phase at Ranger School was an emotional event for me. No one should have to do that. I can't do that, I thought. This isn't worth it, I thought. But in the end, with some encouragement from my amazing wife, I realized that the goal was not so much the outcome. The goal was sometimes just the next step. I could not control whether I was going to see day 60, but I could control whether or not I rucked up and took the next step on day 30, and then the next step. And then I cleaned my weapon, changed my socks, and took the next step. And amazingly, one day I realized it was actually day 60. Look, you can't always speak to the future. You cannot always control tomorrow, but you can look to where you are and you can make sure the windows are clean, the porch is swept. You take the next step. Admiral William McRaven was a career Navy SEAL. Just an amazing resume. A retired 4-star admiral, he was actually been the commander of the all-U.S. Special Operations. Upon his retirement, he actually became the chancellor of the University of Texas system. And he gave an amazing commencement address at Texas in 2014. It's one of my favorite speeches. It's called Make Your Bed. If you've never watched it, I want to challenge you to do so. Admiral McRaven speech, Make Your Bed. That's what it's called. It's some of the best life advice I've ever heard in one speech, and it was designed to say exactly what I'm saying right now. In the speech, McRaven gave several life lessons to the graduates that came from his own experiences. McRaven talked at one point about how every morning at Bud's, to be a SEAL, he was training and learning what it meant to be a SEAL, and the instructors would show up and inspect his bed. His bed. Why? He said if he did it right, then the corners were going to be square, the covers pulled tight, the pillow properly centered on the headboard, the extra blanket folded just right at the foot of the bunk. He said that it was the most mundane task, but they did it every single day. And he thought that it was ridiculous for men who were aspiring to be warriors to have to be forced to make their beds. But then as time went by, he thought, And he said this in his speech. You ready? Quote, he said, the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you'll have accomplished the first task of the day. It'll give you a small sense of pride. It'll encourage you to do another task and another and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life actually do matter. He went on to say this. He said, quote, if you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that you made, and a bed that is made and gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, he said, start off by making your bed. Look, in Proverbs 24:10, it says, if you fall apart in a crisis, there wasn't much to you in the first place. That's what it says, Proverbs 24:10. Interesting. But I submit to you, too, that how you handle a crisis is not determined by just that moment. It is determined by how you handled things that led up to that moment, because life got you ready for the day when the crisis came, because you did the small things along the way. Jesus said in John 16, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. He has. I believe that. His call, Jesus' call, is to lean in, trust, and keep doing what you've been called to do, even when it seems like the small stuff. Like you cannot control tomorrow. But right now, you can make sure your windows are clean, your porch is swept, and your bed is made. And you just keep taking the next step. Better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. That's a wrap for the Right Side Way. There you have it, life lessons inspired by Chief Bowden on Chicago Fire and Admiral McRaven, a Navy SEAL. Anyway, listen, the bottom line here, guys, is that you live on your feet, right? You do. You live on your feet. That's how you take the next step, by being on your feet. Get her done. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. I mean, like saving the world, one soundbite at a time. I got a bunch of texts already. Yeah, the text lines are indeed open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it in or call it in, same number for both. Let me grab a few of those. Oh, man, people are, I got to scroll back down to find the bottom of the string. But Beth from Huntsville says, has anybody ever noticed these protests hardly ever occur in the winter? Bunch of fair weather protesters. You know, that's a great point. Although it's going to get hot pretty soon, and we'll see how that feels. James from Blount County says, what's the name of the church? I don't know what you're asking me, James. Okay. He's asking, James, I think you meant to send that to somebody else. Jeff from Holly Pond says, no. It's better to die praying on your knees than die on your feet running from the Lord. Different story, Jeff. That's not what I'm talking about. I did not intend to imply you don't pray. You can pray on your knees, absolutely. But sometimes prayer has to also be accompanied with the action that God has equipped you for. So my point is, don't surrender. There you go. Allie from Athens says, so weird you would mention the windows that need to be cleaned. Yesterday I had the same thought. She said, it actually came to me along the same way. There were a whole lot of things about which I couldn't do one thing, but I could clean my windows and maybe even to make it an act of worship. There you go. There you go. Thank you, Allie. Cameron from Decatur says, pulled up next to a guy here at Arby's, and we were both listening to you on the radio at the same time with our windows down. It was like hearing you in stereo. Awesome.
That is pretty cool.
That is awesome. I'm loving it. Thank you very much, Cameron. Appreciate you. And thanks for sharing that too, by the way. Bud from, by the way, I got to say this. When I started all this, Big Rig, you weren't with me then. When I started all this, and it was just, I'd sit with a microphone downstairs at my desk. I'm like 3 months into it. And I'm thinking, is this even working? I didn't have a text line.
Humble beginnings.
Well, and still humble, but I didn't have a text line. I didn't have the ability for much in the way of calling. I had a producer sitting up in Huntsville who just did things for me. Anyway, I finally called the guy who runs the station. I said, man, I'm just sitting here talking to the mic every day. Is anybody listening to this stuff? And he goes, have you not seen the ratings? And I was like, wow. So anyway. I said,
that was when you found out about the ratings?
Yeah. My first response was, you have ratings? but anyway, yeah, that's cool. Bud, thank you for that. Cameron, thank you for that. Bud says, Bud from Danville, you could just get an ice cream cone and go on vacation like our leader in the White House does. It must work. He never seems stressed.
He's been on vacation a long time.
Listen, I think he's still mentally on vacation like right now. Jeremy from Huntsville says, great monologue, very encouraging. Thank you, Jeremy. Blessings on you. TL from Huntsville says, great monologue, Phil. C.S. Lewis said, quote, isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back, everything's different. Yeah. Said, don't underestimate the importance of doing small things. Just keep doing the right thing. That's awesome.
I love C.S. Lewis.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then J.T. Lacey Springs says, small tasks often contain the solution to larger problems. Yes, they do. All right. Text it or call it, 833-687-4448. Got a great lineup for you. So we're going to come back here in a minute with Dipper number 1, State of Unions. Y'all, a story broke, I think it was last night. I had not seen this before. Did you hear that the UAB football team is basically unionizing? Now let that sink in. The University of Alabama, Birmingham, the Blazers, the UAB football team, they're actually considered a D1 team now. A D1 team is unionizing. We're talking about 18 to 21-year-old players, college students, unionizing. What in God's name is going on? We'll break all that down for you in a minute. I see it as troublesome. And when I read you some of the rhetoric out of the guy who's helping to do the organization, yeah, you'll know because it sounds just like the United Auto Workers. Sticking it to the man. They're out there getting rich off of us. Greed, corporate greed. It just, I'm sorry. Who gave you the scholarship? Who gave you a college education? Who gave you a dorm and a chow hall to eat in? For the love of God. But, hey, they're being taken advantage of. Yeah. How did Bo Jackson make it? I don't understand. Well, we'll talk about all that. Number 1, Triple Dipper, State of Unions. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here. Y'all are talking about Alabama. Y'all, I don't mean to say this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Couple more texts real quick. Keith from Parts Unknown says, I know you're an Auburn fan. However, Bear Bryant, this day of my life speech is also very inspirational. You know what? Yes, and I do not mind hearing that. I may be an Auburn fan, but I have great respect for the fact that Bear Bryant was a great coach. He has another quote that I love, too. He said, in every game, how'd it go? In every game, there's one play that if you grab hold of it can swing the entire momentum. And I've used that in life to look for those momentum plays, I call them, swing plays.
You know, that costed you a few points.
I probably did. That's okay. I'll be down to a B- or something. Who knows? Just awful. Chris from Gadsden said, on the UAB football team union, my wife asked that as to that makes them employees, and do they get tenure after 3 years? Okay, excellent point, Chris from Gadsden. So jumping right into my topic, here's the deal. No, they're not employees yet. That's the question. Will they become employees? Because at Dartmouth College, that's exactly what's happening. Here's the deal. In case you had not heard, 1819 News has a story that came out last night. Every member, it says, of the UAB football team recently elected to join the athletes.org, which is the College Football Athletic Players Association. One of several companies trying to organize athletes for possible revenue sharing discussions. It says the decision makes UAB football the first Division I team to publicly join the Players Association. Come on. Here's one of the things that bugs me about this, too. It was their coach encouraging them to do this. Like, what was he thinking? Now, he's going to have his opinions, and granted, this is his vocation. I get it. He does this daily for a living. But I cannot imagine how he can look at this as being a great idea. But apparently he does. UAB football coach Trent Dilfer gathered his team together for a voluntary meeting back in mid-April, it says, to encourage them to prepare for a future when college athletes might be able to negotiate for a larger share of their sports revenue. He said they're going to have a seat at the table, Dilfer said. He told ESPN this in an interview. He said, I wanted to make sure I help pour gasoline on something that's going to happen no matter what. I might as well use my influence to help it happen faster on behalf of our players. So basically what he just said was, yeah, these kids are, pretty soon they're going to be like bum rushing us and going on strike, and they're not going to play on Saturday unless we give them more money. That's what's going to happen. We want better dorms or we're not going to play. I will not show up for my practices unless I know for a fact that we can be done by 5 p.m. I mean, where's this going to stop? Whatever happened to riding for the brand? Right now, there's none of that. NIL and things like this are changing the face of football completely. They've gone away from the idea of playing for the brand, and now they're playing for themselves. So I began doing some looking on this. I'm thinking, just like Chris from Gadsden a minute ago, how can this work? Because I thought in order to unionize, they had to first become employees, which would be a whole nother ball of wax, because then you got employee benefits. And then what do they not get? Do they get tenure, like just said a minute ago? Do they get the ability to have retirement plans? Do they get, who knows? Where does it stop? Is there a 40-hour work week? I mean, where does it stop? So there's an article that I pulled. It came out in July of last year. I pulled this off of an organization called on3.com. Talks about a guy named Jason Stahl, S-T-A-H-L, Jason Stahl. He's the executive director of the College Football Players Association. This association, by the way, is working hard to become the union of choice for college football players. They've had a 3-year phase plan. I mean, they're well organized. They're doing the thing. Phase 1 was going around making all the rounds to all the college football programs and laying out the groundwork for them on why this is so important. Need to unionize your football team. I mean, when does it stop? Little League? Wait, you're going to have Pop Warner leagues going to be unionized? We refuse to play unless we get better snacks after the game. It's about to be an issue, y'all. But yeah, so phase one was making the rounds. Phase two is basically beginning to work with key programs. Phase three is to begin signing groups up to become participating teams. It says, while the likes of Washington State Athletic Director Pat Chun have discussed the need for guardrails on NIL, that the name, identity, and likeness, where kids get paid for their image, and I understand what they're saying. It's their image. They want to be paid for the use of their image. I get that. Go ask some of the other athletes how much they got paid back in the day when they were playing in college. You're getting a scholarship. You're getting a special dorm with special food. You're getting the notoriety of being a college football player. Somewhere in there, that has always meant something. Apparently, it doesn't mean something anymore. But as Washington State Athletic Director Pat Chun discussed the need for guardrails, this guy Jason Stahl, he argued basically the opposite. He said there's no issue here. Oh, really? Here's what he said. You ready for this? He said, what's the heart of the problem? The paternalism of the administrative class in college sports, right? They're just like, we're going to decide everything for you, and you're just going to sit over there in the corner and wait for our decision. Well, that has to end, says Stahl. We got to move to a future where the athletes are engaged through their associations for the adults that they are. But they're not adults. A lot of these kids are 18 years old. The age of majority is 19. You don't send a kid to basic training and expect that they're going to walk in and not have a drill sergeant tell them what to do. You don't have a kid who's 21. I mean, literally, some of these kids can't even vote yet. They certainly can't buy a beer yet. But you're telling us that you think the best thing in the world for them to be able to do is go on strike because they didn't get as much money as the other team down the road. Where does it end? And what they're doing, by his comments, what he's doing, this is the age-old situation here. He is pitting the kids against their schools. Listen to his words. The paternalism of the administrative class in college sports. Just going to make you sit over there while we make decisions about your life. Well, most people not of the age of majority or barely of the age of majority actually have other people that do make decisions. It's called life. I got a real beef with this, and I'm sure if I sat through a presentation, I might hear something that would help me soften some of the edges on how I feel about it. But listen, when I hear a guy, an adult, talk about organizing young men like this, and by doing so, his mantra is to tell them why they're being abused by the organization that gave them a scholarship and allowed them to be a part of the program. Pitting people against each other is not what I would call true leadership. He says the primary mission of the College Football Players Association is to be the organization for college football that the National Football League Players Association is for the NFL, including, you ready for this, housing any sort of eventual union of college football players. Right now they're just calling themselves an association. Oh, you mean like the teachers union, the AEA, the Alabama Education Association? Yeah, they don't try to wield their influence at all. It's just an association. Don't worry, college football will still be awesome. And what's going to happen when everybody pays money for their season tickets? And come time for the big game, you find out that 5 players decided to hold out because they didn't like their contract. But they're college players. Yeah, but that's what, when you're a union, you hold out for your contract, right? But I paid money for my ticket. Hey, university, I want my money back for my ticket. Then the university has to go, well, now, wait a minute. We can't give the money back because you've already bought it. And then the kid's going, I don't care. I just want what's mine. You see where this is going? Recently, the College Football Players Association and Jason Stahl again, made one of the biggest splashes to date when they called for a player boycott of the upcoming EA Sports NCAA football game. It's unclear how it would come to a head. So I remember this. It was last year. EA Sports has their NCAA football, and they use the likenesses, and they decided that these kids weren't being paid enough for their likenesses. When I was a kid, the idea that someone would put my picture in a video game at all would have meant something. And I'm not trying to take away from these kids maybe getting reimbursed more. But here's what you had. The association helped the players organize a boycott. Oh, really? Yeah, we're not going to stop them from playing. No. You're just teaching them how to boycott. He says we're going to educate the players because at least we want to give them informed consent. And yeah, basically he says, okay, the players should boycott the game. That's the game, the EA Sports game. We used the word boycott and got people up in arms, so it's good, I think, because we got some blowback and that was necessary. In other words, we were rabble-rousers, but that's what it took to get something done, by golly. The players are the game, Stahl reiterated, and to that end, Stahl said he isn't making mainly arguments about labor solidarity or improving working conditions. It's all about the money. I'm reading direct from the article. All about the money. Listen, I'll finish this article up by pointing out, it says this. There's a guy named Mitt Winter quoted in here. He's a sports attorney. He says he can't predict when the tides are going to fully shift. It's going to be a little while, he says, but he said obviously to have a real union, they have to be employees. So that's the first step. And then he says, I think that's going to happen, though, definitely at some point. The question is when. And then he says, is the National Labor Relations Board then going to be getting involved? So it's hard to say what's going to happen, but I don't know, maybe a couple of years. A couple of years. So in a couple of years, we could be looking at college football players have to become actual employees of the school. Well, then I want to know, too, can they get in the portal and leave? Because if they just went through contract negotiation, that contract's going to spell out the terms of their employment. And I guarantee you, if the school's saying, fine, we'll make sure you get more money, but you are not getting into a portal. You're going to, by God, play here. And then you're going to have an 18-year-old who's going to have a tantrum. By the way, up in Michigan, the Michigan legislature last year dropped a bill, a Democrat dropped it in. It would allow public school athletes in Michigan to unionize. Yeah. I don't like where this is going at all. Not at all, y'all. I do not like it at all. And there's a lot going on around the nation. I got a story here that I'll get to after the break. But up in Dartmouth, at Dartmouth College, apparently the law in that area now says that the students there are allowed now to organize their own labor union. That's what it says. I'm reading you from the AP with a quote from Tommy Tuberville that I'll read you after we get back from the break. Y'all, I find this to be a little nutty. I think the world's turning on its head right now. And when you can't even enjoy college football on a Saturday because the kids are unionizing and you're starting to wonder if they're going to boycott a game because they didn't get paid enough, it's not even fun anymore at that point. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. I mean, like, wow, making common sense like a superpower. Don't forget, coming up here, top of the hour, we'll have our buddy Scott Buttram on the air talking to us about his thoughts on this unionization of football players. So I found an article on the AP, came out right at about 45 days ago, mid-March. So this article talked about the lead up to the story we had yesterday. And there was a poll that was done, allegedly. I say allegedly. I doubt if they're lying about it. But the bottom line is the Associated Press and the Center for Public Affairs Research collaborated on a poll and found that 55% of adults believe that NCAA athletes should not be permitted to form unions. Okay. It says across party lines, 56% of Democrats, only about half of independents, and 23% of Republicans support the idea of unionization. So when you break it down by party lines, Republicans are like, no, like, stop that. What are you talking about? Well, they did an interview with Tommy Tuberville, which makes great sense because how many years did he spend as a coach? So Coach Tuberville, a former major football coach and a harsh critic of unions in general, said that athletes unionizing, here's his words, would absolutely kill college sports. His quote, here's ready. He says, the last time I looked, they're not employees. These students are student athletes. And if you want the federal government involved when you want them to ruin something, then you try to make the student athletes employees. Yeah, he's not wrong. By the way, Tuberville and Joe Manchin have both sponsored a bill trying to kind of reel in the lack of NIL guidelines, no parameters at all. The bill can't get any traction. There's too much money involved, that's why. But it says right here in this article, too, from the AP, that of the 1,100 NCAA member schools, most could not afford to treat their athletes as employees, and it would wind up sponsoring fewer teams. Let me tell you what happens, by the way. A lot of folks don't think about this kind of thing when they're out there. You make them employees so they can unionize. Well, here's an idea. When you make somebody an employee and you change their scholarship to a payment for services rendered, that became taxable income. A scholarship is not generally taxable. So suddenly, these kids are like, wait, hold on. I got to pay the government how much? It's gonna be a wake-up call. Well, that means you got to pay me more. You got to pay more because I need to take care of it. And then next thing you know, you're going to have college kids meeting with their CPA to figure out how to shelter their NIL money. And then, oh, by the way, guess what? The colleges then have to pay payroll tax because there are any number of things that the employee doesn't pay that the employer does. I know that most taxes coming out of a paycheck, people look at that as being the employee paid it. But there are certain aspects of what goes into a payroll that come direct from the employer. I mean, where does this stop, y'all? It says last month, by the way, this came out in March. Last month, a regional director of the National Labor Relations Board ruled that Dartmouth men's basketball players did qualify for employee status, paving the way for the team members to vote if they want to unionize. I'm just saying. Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut, he said now it's time for the colleges to stop wasting their time and money fighting athletes in court and lobbying Congress to roll back athletes' rights and instead start negotiating with athletes on revenue sharing, health, and safety protections. So these kids that are there, and they come in to, I don't know, pick one, University of Alabama. How long has the University of Alabama been a campus? Well, they're coming into a much vaunted, long-standing institution that people come in from all over and pay for the privilege of going to, as opposed to being paid to go there. But they want to be paid as employees. That would not work out well. Everything changes. Everything changes as they unionize. I didn't even get into my stack that I've got right here in front of me about what's going on with the potential unionization at Mercedes and the union. But I questioned this. How did UAB get on this tab? Because their coach took them down that road. Their coach, Trent Dilfer, literally said, I intend to pour gasoline on this fire. His words, not mine. Hey, I got a text right here. Where'd it go? There was one that was a great one. I saw it. Here it is. Ronnie from Danville says, Phil, I talked to John Hanna. Wow. I love John Hanna. I had a chance to meet with John Hanna personally. What a great guy. So I talked to John Hanna one time. My cousin that was old at the time, he told John, I'd like to have a job where I just work 2 hours on Sundays. John told him they started at 5 a.m. and it was 9 p.m. a lot of times before they got done. There you go. That's right. I heard somebody say one time that they were out at the driving range watching Tiger Woods, and he, teed off on something. And the response was, man, I wish I could drive like that. And Tiger Woods, probably being a little bit arrogant, but he turned around and said, no, you don't. Otherwise, you'd be out here hitting 5 buckets of ball before breakfast every day like me. Okay, I get it. These athletes, they put a lot of time in, and they should. But if we're going to let kids unionize, and then tell the colleges that we pay for with our tax dollars that they want more money or they're not going to play on a Saturday. I mean, do you see this as a good thing? Text it in. Tell me what you think. Coming up next, we'll see what Scott Buttram thinks. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on this Taco Tuesday. And we're going to go right to the phones right now. Somebody who I've gotten to appreciate quite a lot lately is just kind of always there with commentary that makes a difference. But Scott Buttram is the publisher at the Trustful Tribune, and he has been a guest host here on Rightside, and he's on the phone right now. Scotticus, how you doing?
I'm doing well, my brother. How are you?
I'm good enough, man. How about that?
That's all we can ask for some days, Phil. I'm telling you. We should probably be grateful for that.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, listen, man, I just spent a little time there kind of unloading on my audience about my thoughts about this potential unionization of UAB's football team and just like college players in general. But you were telling me during the break that even another story broke just like maybe this afternoon. What do you know?
Yeah. About 2 hours ago, we'll back up a bit, and I'll kind of refresh the audience with what you just talked to them about. UAB football in Birmingham, University of Alabama at Birmingham, for clarity's sake, it is part of the University of Alabama system, became the first FBS team as an entire team to join athletics.org, which is a up-and-coming and working they're working on the process of becoming a players union. They are the first FBS team in the United States to join this future players union as a team. They do it, ironically, at a time that Governor Kay Ivey and Republican leaders in the state are vehemently fighting against union organization of the auto plants. As you know, you've covered that. I've covered it. We've all talked about it. So, and evidently, Coach Dilfer, Trent Dilfer, took it upon himself. He met with athletic.org. He was impressed and took it upon himself to arrange this voluntary meeting with the entire team, at which time the entire team joined this group. I can't help but wonder, you've taken a step as a head coach to turn your players ultimately into employees.
Yep.
If that happened in my organization without my involvement, that person would not be sitting at a desk in this office the next day.
No, and I can't help but think, when are they going to say something? Yeah, because it was what, Scott, just like 6-7 years ago when UAB almost lost its football team completely, and the state kind of ran to their aid and got them all back in line, and now look at this.
They did lose it. They shut it down.
Yeah.
And they had to rebirth it after blowback from the local community. People like John Archibald and Kyle Whitmire were very upset about that, and I understand because, I mean, Whitmire's probably spends in college football. I'm sure he's there at the UAB games every week. I'm kidding. I doubt if he's ever seen one in person since high school. But, you know, there was a lot of blowback. That brings up another point, Bill. At that point, we found out that UAB was supplementing the athletic department out of the general student fund.
Yeah.
They were supplementing the athletic department to the tune of $20 million a year. That was either 7th or 8th highest in all of FBS. 300 colleges, they were supplementing it with regular student money, $20 million to the tune of $20 million a year. Now, Archibald did report that after I shared that information, and the next day he ran a story saying at least 6 programs out there are spending or supplementing their program by more than UAB is. Not mentioning that 297 weren't. But so we know that it's never been a financially strong program. It does provide a lot for the community. There's some decent support. I think they average somewhere between about 14,000 to 16,000 on any given Saturday, which is a little bit bigger than a Hoover game, Hoover High School game. So, you know, it's just mind-boggling. The chairman of your board at the university is Governor Kay Ivey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who is fighting against unions at this moment. Does the president know? Does the chancellor know? Does the board members know? Did the chairman of the board, Governor Ivey of the Board of Education, did she know that while they're out there fighting unionization, a state school went and unionized the football team?
And then on top of that, how are the taxpayers of this state going to feel knowing that they are now subsidizing what amounts to basically teenagers, some of whom haven't reached the age of majority and are too young to buy a beer, financing their unionization and the ability for them to then boycott games on Saturdays that you bought tickets for. I look at this and go, where does this end?
Yeah, and not these wouldn't be just any employees, right? I mean, providing food, their tuition, their medical care. I mean, those players want for nothing, and that's at a school like UAB. But here's what really blows my mind. One of the comments Trent Dilfer made, Phil, was I want to make sure the players have a seat at the table, and they're going to get part of this revenue.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, let's look at the UAB football revenue. So I pulled it up. This is from the Knight Report. They do this every year on the financial side of college athletics. UAB's football revenue in 2023 was just over $14 million, $14.1 million. 4.1 million of that is going to the coaches. So the coaches are already getting roughly 30% of the money.
Yeah.
The players get their share of this revenue. Based on what I'm looking at, it looks like football loses money every year. So what does a revenue share look like with a company that loses or an organization that's losing money?
Yeah. What it looks like is players jumping in the portal and going somewhere else. That's what it looks like.
Shouldn't we assume that the players are willing to take a share of that debt? If they want a cut of the revenue, you take it good and bad, right?
Well, here's the other piece. Right now, scholarships are generally non-taxable. So these kids saying, we want to be employees so we can unionize and get more stuff. Oh, did we lose him? We just lost him. All right, Scott, listen, call back in if you can. Rats, I heard his signal getting weak there a couple of times, so I guess he's in a spot where it's tough. See if you can get him back on there, buddy. It's just, I mean, he's so right. Where was the coaches thinking when you got an ongoing fight at the state level and the governor, who is technically by default a member of your board of trustees, the taxpayers pay your salary because you're a public school employee, and you look at it and go, what in God's name were you thinking, Coach? Thinking this would be a great. I'm going to get these players in here. We're going to have them. We're going to show them what they can have a voice at the table. They can go ahead and be in there demanding some more revenue sharing opportunities in the future. Really great, though. As Scott just pointed out, there's not a whole lot of revenue to share. Is he back on? Great. Hey.
I apologize, Phil. I was trying to tell another call I'd call him back, and I think I somehow bumped those off.
Oh, no worries. You're a busy man. Hey, so I made the point a minute ago, Scott, just before you came back on, that I look at it and think, how do the taxpayers of the state feel knowing they are now paying for someone who could then boycott the things that they're paying for?
Right. And this is all taxpayer funded. And actually, I probably shouldn't say that because we don't know that. We do know that athletic departments get a lot of private donations, so we don't know. I don't know what the UAB situation is. I do know that at the time they ended football, the athletic department was getting a $20 million a year supplement of taxpayer money. Okay, so we do know that, and we know that the entire athletic department revenue shows at about $40 million. So it looks like the university, at least at that point, was supplying more than 50% of the revenue required to run the athletic department. You know, I get the revenue sharing at the Alabamas and the Auburns, where they really are making millions of dollars in those programs. But is the court going to allow you to pay football and not play and not pay the volleyball players?
No.
Or not pay the golf players or equestrian in Auburn? I mean, if this is going to be a share and share alike, then the football players are not going to come out looking so well at the vast majority of universities in the country. But Phil, how do we, as you were saying, how do we as taxpayers feel about spending millions of dollars on public institutions that are then used as a platform for individuals to further their athletic career and get paid at the same time. I don't know how that plays, but let's not forget there is an NIL bill for high schoolers sitting in Montgomery as we speak. Now, you know the legislators, you serve. My gut feeling is they don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Nope.
But as an attorney, you can tell the audience what's going to happen.
Oh, it's going
A federal judge is going to rule somewhere sometime, and it doesn't matter what Alabama has passed. It's going to be the law of the land.
It's going to be madness. And Tommy Tuberville, by the way, AP, I've got a story here in my hands. We got about less than a minute left. But the AP ran a story, and they interviewed Coach Tuberville, Senator Tuberville, and he said flat out, if athletes unionize, it's going to absolutely kill college sports. And I believe it.
Well, we took the first step here in Alabama with the state school.
Proud to lead the way.
That's where we are. And, Phil, your job, my job, let's keep calling them out.
That's what we do, brother. It's what we do the best. All right, man. Scott Buttram, Trustful Tribune. I appreciate you, man, as always.
Thanks, Phil. Good to visit.
See you. All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come right back, and I'll get some of your text messages. There's several of y'all have an opinion on this, apparently. So, yeah, if you want to text it in or call it in, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. Right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, like making common sense like a superpower. I got so many text messages. How do I catch all these? Let's see what I can do here. TC from Priceville, he says, very curious how this would affect non-scholarship walk-on players. I don't know. He said, my son's going into his third year as a preferred walk-on offensive lineman at Troy University. Good for him, man. He said he hadn't heard any talk about this at all in their program. Well, that's because I don't think it's making the rounds yet. But keep in mind, TC, this was because the coach called it in. The coach set this up. He literally said he's the one that called the organization to come meet with his kids. And he said, in his words, he poured gas on the fire. So I don't think the players at Troy have probably heard about this because their coach is not seeing this as the way forward. But glad to hear about your son. Gary from Decatur says, heck, let's unionize the military. Then we won't hear any more stories about military families on food stamps. Oh, awesome. That's great. I'm sorry, sir. I'm going to boycott. We're going on strike. We can't go to war tomorrow. Awesome. Brand new in the text line, Karen from Athens. Karen, glad you're here. Says, regarding the unionization of college football players, those that are pushing for it will get a payout too. They don't care about the players, just their own pockets. You are so right. It's a money-making opportunity for them. You watch. John from Huntsville texted in and said, Scott Buttram should take over for Grand Council tomorrow. He's been on Grand Council. He does a great job, man. Mike from Coxie, Alabama says, first we had liberal professors, now we get liberal coaches. Higher education has some low standards. Wow. Michael from Taft, Tennessee says, wonder how much the coach got for that kickback. TL from Gurley, Alabama says, brand spanking new with the text line too, isn't he? TL from Gurley says, UAB dropped their football program once before, didn't they? Perhaps UAH can get their Division I hockey program back if they dropped it again. I love UAH hockey. That was, when I did my first year at UAH before I transferred down to South Alabama, and it was great, man, watching hockey. I think, if I'm not mistaken, ice hockey was our homecoming game. Or you didn't have a football team, so homecoming was ice hockey. It was very cool. Kevin from Hartselle, Alabama says, here we go, making more entitlement programs when you make athletes employees in college. Oh, boy. Can you imagine how many text messages I've got here? Let's see. I'm going to skip way down there. I see one. Ron from Tuscumbia says, Trent Dilfer took too many hits to the heads as quarterback of the Bucks. Believe me, I saw it Sunday after Sunday. Okay. Trina from Elkmont says the university should then have the players pay tuition, boarding, and food allowance. Here's my question. Are they going to wind up then also having things written into their contract that says upon graduation, if you get a big NFL contract, you have to support the Alumni Association? I just wonder, are they going to mandate things that these kids are going to contract away and it's going to be there for a long time? John N as in November. John N from Huntsville says, Phil, good articles today, especially regarding UAB football program. So what about the payment of union dues? Oh, great question. Is it do they start paying when they're signing a scholarship whilst in high school? But more importantly, what about union membership and benefits for trainers and equipment managers or even cheerleaders? Weeping for the Republican Huntsville I am. Wow, John, those are great questions, man. I hadn't thought about that. These kids are going to be looking at it going, wait, I got to pay dues? Wait, what? I thought I just got money. That's what's going to happen. You watch. Rex from Huntsville, we should be seeing this disaster unfolding. Nick Saban didn't want to put up with it, and he ain't gonna. I know. And Saban has said he saw this as being extremely problematic, and I think he got out in part because of it. Brand new texter, Wyatt from Florence. Wyatt from Florence says, got an email a couple of weeks ago from Donald Trump. The ones wanting to donate. The question asked, who should be vice president on the ticket? And I proudly wrote Phil Williams. Wyatt, I am honored by that, although I do not imagine that I'll get the call. But thank you very much, my brother. John from Pike Road, down yonder towards Montgomery, says, Phil, if college athletes do unionize, just wait till they go on strike and then see all the major uproar when people don't get to watch college football. I'm saying, bro. I'm saying. I happen to know where you used to work, man, and you saw these kind of things happen. Tracy from Athens, got a little off subject here, but yes, I did see that, Tracy. She's asking, did I see the Alabama A&M out of Huntsville? is talking about buying the Birmingham Southern campus. Yeah, I did see that. It'd be interesting to see how that works out. Now, they're a state-funded organization, but they're a full-on college, and they can make a go of it. You know what? Good on them. Last two texts before we hit the break. JT Lacey Springs says, pay the players. 100% into escrow, no payout till graduation. Genius. JT from Lacey Springs for athletic director. There you go. And then Karen from Athens says, if they want to get paid, make it the same as their scholarship. I agree. And then, by the way, it's taxable. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, y'all. I'm talking about Alabama. Man, I mean, this show, it goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, I got to tell you, by the way, when during the breaks you hear the ads playing, right? There's a reason for that. You might think, what is that, Phil? It's because that's how we run our business. So people don't realize a lot of times that Rightside Radio, we are a standalone business. We are an entity unto ourselves. The radio stations you may be listening to us on right now, they don't own us. We send them the show. So we have our own studio, our own staff. We do our own things. But like any other business, we have to support that. And part of how we do that is by selling ads. So think about this. You're a Rightside ruffian. You've got a business. You sell goods or services. You might want to know that our show, between all our stations, has well over 30,000 estimated Rightside ruffians that listen every week. So if you want a captive audience full of ruffians who might rather buy from another ruffian, guess what? You might want to advertise on Rightside Radio. So the bottom line is this. Go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. Send us a message on the advertising contact tab. And Lauren from Rightside will get in touch with you like ASAP, and she's been signing up several new ones. We're glad to have them. Gosh, listen, I tell you what, I'm going to go to it real quick. We have the advertising page, sponsors page. Sponsors right now shows a variety of our sponsors and who they are and gives you links direct with their logo. And we want to give me some applause for Bama Leak Detection. Bama Leak Detection is our newest advertiser on Rightside Radio as of just yesterday, I believe. And Bama Leak Detection did the same thing. They got in touch with us, and guess what? Here they are, and we're proud to have them on board. Anyway, you want to advertise the Rightside? Go to rightsideradio.org. We'll get you. All right. Let's switch gears. Dipper number 2 on this Taco Tuesday. I guess I should say dose on Taco Tuesday.
Should we do another Taco Tuesday since I screwed the first one up?
Hey, it is his Taco Tuesday.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
Are we going to get in trouble for that sound effect?
I don't think so.
I like it. Did you change the avatar on it now? You got a button with like Speedy Gonzalez on it?
No, but I moved it around to where it's easier to see.
Cool. All right. You guys have no idea. I'm pretty sure if you could see the inside, by the way, you can see the inside of the studio. Just go to rightsideradio.org. And there's our live stream is right up there. But you can see Big Rig sitting at the nuclear launch site. He's got more buttons than a missile silo over there.
Oh yeah, it's pretty high tech over here.
I don't want to brag or anything, but it's pretty high tech. All right, let's change gears. So when did Drew Barrymore get so weird? There's no way to start. I just launched. People are like, what just happened? I'm doing Veep stakes. All right, the vice president. Let's talk about who's going to be vice president, but let's talk about who's already on the list trying to be vice president. And in case of Kamala Harris, it's again. So Vice President Kamala Harris went on Drew Barrymore's. Apparently, Drew Barrymore has a TV show. Did you know this? Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's a thing. It's a thing. She does some weird interviewing, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's like she is like in your personal space, leaning forward, giving you just these plainted, pleading looks and, the puppy dog eyes and come on. Anyway, she gets on there. It's like, to me, probably one of the creepiest interviews I've ever seen. Like just skin crawl. But she gets on there with Kamala Harris. And I will be honest, for a minute there, I was feeling sorry for Kamala Harris. Because it's that moment where you're trapped and you don't know what to do. She's on the couch. Drew Barrymore is getting closer and closer, like to the point that their knees are almost touching on the couch. And then Drew Barry's leaning in on her and says, I've decided that our country just needs a hug. Our country needs a mom. We want you to be Mamala Harris. And I think she was waiting, like that was the line. You know how you have the punchline, you've sort of prearranged for the moment? I think it went over that well.
It just looked awkward.
I'm not sure awkward begins to describe it. Like to the point that Kamala gave the and the audience gave some polite, laughter and a little bit of applause. Mm-hmm. But if they were looking for the big hit, it's the most widely mocked thing, I think, on social media right now. Kamala Harris. But that's by the way, that's just so you know, she says, as a woman who respects so much and wants to share and wants to be confident, has no ounce of meek, that has competitiveness, when we lift each other up, we all rise. We need a great protector. Oh. All right. Nobody should ever watch that show again. Just saying. But that's one VP. We already know that one. On the Democrat side, their VP is going to be Kamala Harris. They say. For now, as far as we know. Then let's talk briefly about the independent, RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is out there making waves. RFK Jr. got somebody on his list. He announced not long ago that, first of all, it was widely speculated, he was first looking at Aaron Rodgers. That's right, football player Aaron Rodgers. Like he was looking at an NFL quarterback. How are you going to make this happen? I don't know. Why Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. But Aaron Rodgers was being widely talked about. Then he was talking about Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura, Jesse the Body Ventura, Jesse with the minigun on the Predator. Spitting tobacco makes him a sexual tyrannosaurus. Ain't got time to bleed. That Jesse Ventura was going to be considered for potential running mate for RFK Jr. Well, he was. He's not now because you know why? He picked a billionaire lawyer out of California that no one really knew about called Nicole Shanahan. Story here on the Daily Wire. RFK Jr. announces hardcore leftist Nicole Shanahan as his VP pick. This is late March. So it just happened about, 4 weeks ago. RFK Jr. announced on Tuesday he selected Nicole Shanahan to be his vice presidential running mate as he continues to run as an independent after dropping out of the Democratic Party. Shanahan, the ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin, has a history of donating to Democrat politicians, is the president and founder of an organization that invests in leftist criminal justice policies and environmentalism and abortion access. In other words, she's an all-in, hardcore billionaire liberal who puts her money where her mouth is. I mean, she's not like one of those who screams and shouts and then goes on her vacation and forgets she said it. She's putting like lots of money into the most liberal things you can find. The wide speculation is not only did he choose a super lib, but he chose a super lib who can help fund their campaign. That's what just happened. When she divorced from the guy from Google, by the way, I think her holdout for the settlement and the divorce was $1 billion. $1 billion. Anyway, I also saw something about her having an affair with Elon Musk at one point. I don't know. I just look at this and go, good gosh, I'm not sure that this is going to really help your campaign. By the way, all of y'all out there who are still never Trumpers, and you were thinking maybe RFK Jr., maybe just realize what just happened. RFK Jr. signaled that maybe he's in the not in the Democrat Party, not because of anything other than they just wouldn't let him debate. And so he got mad, took his ball and went home, and he picked the most liberal person he could find who also had money to be his running mate. So who's going to be on Trump's list? Who is it? Wide speculation. Who's it going to be? John from Harvest is already weighing in. I knew that. I agree. John from Harvest says, Phil, I would love a Trump DeSantis ticket. However, not sure how much of a second fiddle DeSantis would want to be. He may want to keep some independence as governor and wait till 2028. That said, he said, I'm thinking that Trump will go with someone he thinks will help him with a key demographic. He said, I'll say Sarah Sanders or Elise Stefanik, or if she had a little more experience, I'd say Katie Britt would be high on the short list. John, you're nailing it, man. Come host my show, brother. But I agree. I think, though, that while I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders is great, I think she's just making her name as an executive. I think she could continue to do well and become a presidential candidate herself, but give it a little more time. I think Kristi Noem may have burned a bridge by killing her puppy. That's been a weird deal. Get into that in a minute. It's like bizarro world story. I don't know what just happened. And then you've got, some of the outliers that you look at and go, very cool, Vivek Ramaswamy. Can he do it? I don't think so. What about Tim Scott? I like Tim Scott. I think Tim Scott would be a good guy, but does he have the charisma? But I don't know. Does he bring something to the table other than his demographics, which would be huge because he's from South Carolina and he's a black man who's very conservative? And maybe. But I will tell you this. The amount of excitement about DeSantis makes me wonder if something's up. Because there's a lot of people out there that see him as the one they wished had won the primary. There are people who are going to vote for Trump, and I hear them say it all the time, who are going to vote for Trump because they can't vote for Biden, but they didn't want to vote for Trump. They wanted to vote for DeSantis. DeSantis was he was seen as the guy. He's not super dynamic, but he's super solid. Look at what he's doing in Florida. Every single day, he is spanking liberals and sending them on their way. So I can't help but wonder, can we do this? Here's a storyline for you. Aside from all the other speculation about other names, you've got a story that just broke yesterday. Pulled this one from the Post Millennial. DeSantis is going to be hitting the campaign trail for Trump after the two met in Florida. Wait, hang on a second. Trump and DeSantis, they had a meeting, apparently. It says that the private meeting took place in Miami. According to the New York Post, sources familiar with the matter said that Trump and DeSantis met in Miami on Sunday and came away after several hours with an agreement that the latter, meaning DeSantis, would help gin up support for the former, meaning Trump, in Sunshine State. The meeting was set up by Florida real estate mogul and mutual friend of both men, a guy named Steve Witkoff. Unlike many of the pair's interactions over the past year, it was described as an overall friendly event. So yeah, there was some bad blood during the campaign. Politics, as they always say, makes for weird bedfellows, right? Strange bedfellows. Is that what's happening here? I don't know. When we get back from this break, I'll tell you, though, there's a constitutional provision that could get in the way. Can DeSantis be the running mate for Trump? Put aside whether he wants to. Is he even allowed to do it legally? I'll tell you all about that when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right, just making it cool to be a conservative. So the Veep stakes, who's out there? Who's gonna be in the final running? Well, there's others we haven't even named yet. There's Doug Burgum, who is the governor right now in North Dakota, I believe. You've got, of course, Kristi Noem had that weird thing happen where she's told the world that she shot her dog because it allegedly was, I don't know, aggressive or something, or didn't. Bottom line is, I haven't read up on it in detail. I just find it to be a weird story that you look at and go, I'm not sure what you were trying to do by printing that in your book, but there it is. And so now, do we want a puppy killer? I can just see the mailers going out to your mailbox now from the Biden campaign. You don't want a puppy killer on the ticket. Vote Biden. Then you got the whole question about DeSantis. But it's not just DeSantis. You've also got Byron Donalds and Marco Rubio, all from Florida, who were said to be on Trump's list of considerations. But a little-known fact is that the 12th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution may actually prohibit the ability of two candidates, a president and vice president, coming from the same state. Why? Why would this be? All right, so the bottom, I pulled this off Tampa Bay News, and I've got a backup here from a website called the Deseret. But the Tampa Bay News points out, here's how it words. The 12th Amendment to the Constitution, this is the one that formed the Electoral College that we use for electing a president. It says the electors shall meet in their respective states and vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom, at least, shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves. So the Constitution says the president and the vice president have to come from different states. So if Kay Ivey was running for president, don't see it, but if Kay Ivey was running for president, then we in Alabama, our electors, would be able to vote for Kay Ivey. But if I don't know, if Will Ainsworth was her vice presidential candidate, then the Constitution says you can't do that because they can't both be from the same state. Okay, why? Well, the question goes back to the Founding Fathers. What were they trying to do with the Electoral College? They were trying to make sure that smaller communities, smaller states did not lose everything because the big population centers controlled the flow. By using the Electoral College, New Jersey has as much of a say in electing a president, technically, as Texas does. Not really, but it does. It puts them on a level playing field. It gives them a number of electors that they would not have had if it was just a pure popular vote, because the population of New Jersey is so small, nobody would even care. In doing that, they also wanted to make sure, though, that a president and a vice president from the same state couldn't get elected and then go to Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden, it's like all Florida in the White House. Everybody's Florida in the White House. All we care about is Florida in the White House, because you just ran the ticket from one state. What would happen if all California in the White House, all New York? You imagine the politics of being that, well, it can't be any worse than Biden, but even still, you know what I'm saying. That's that. What I did not know until I was getting ready for the show was this has happened once before in recent years. George W. Bush. I did not know this. Dick Cheney was living in Texas. George W. Bush from Texas. How do we handle this? So before they announced he was going to be vice president, Dick Cheney moved back home to his home state of Wyoming. He just went ahead and said, I'm moving my residency. And then they declared him as a candidate. A court battle ensued. The federal district court said this is acceptable because he moved and established his residency before the declaration of his candidacy for vice president. Okay, great. But it's Trump. It's Trump, and I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what George W. Bush did. It doesn't matter what anybody else, all God's children know it's Trump. They're going to bring a legal fight, right? So the question would be, who gets to decide? In other words, does the court have to approve it, or can it just happen? What does it mean to be an inhabitant? Like, for instance, Trump owns Trump Tower in New York City, and he also owns Mar-a-Lago in Florida. If he, at the last minute, says, I am switching my residency back to New York, and then he and Ron DeSantis are in different states. Could it work? Or is he truly an inhabitant if he actually still owns a house, an estate down in Florida? And then on top of that, the question is going to be, when is the date of determination? When? I mean, Dick Cheney did it kind of at the last minute. But at this point, Ron DeSantis can't move because he's the governor. He can't leave. He's not going to move. Trump will be the one who have to reestablish his residency, I would imagine. But he's already declared his presidency. So can he do that in the middle of his presidential campaign? I don't know the answer to this question. All I know is I'm a firm believer in the application of constitutional law. And I don't think you can just shuck it off. So the question we have right now about the ability of Trump and DeSantis to be on the same ticket may be exciting to some, but it appears to be constitutionally prohibited. And that, my friends, is a crying shame. We'll see. We will see indeed. All right, listen, coming back up, John Wall, chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, give us his perspective of where he sees the Veep stakes going. Who's going to be our vice presidential candidate? I want to know, don't you? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, all right, we're getting Chairman John Wall from the Alabama Republican Party on the phone. I got to tell you, I got a text here from Lewis from Birmingham. He says, this is easy. He's been in a New York courtroom for more than half a year, thanks to the libs. He has property. He's been in the state. He's a New Yorker. So Lewis thinks that we're just good to go ahead and say Trump is a resident of New York. Call her done. Let's find out what the guy knows who lives, sleeps, eats, drinks, and breathes this stuff on a daily basis. Chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, John Wall's on the line. Hey, John, how you doing?
I am doing well. It's good to be on the show.
Absolutely. Good to have you. Appreciate you making some time. I know you are super busy. I got to ask you, what's the speculation at the party level? I mean, I know you're on the national scene all the time with the RNC, but you're also dealing with stuff here in Alabama. So the Veep stakes is what I've been calling this. What are we going to see for our vice president? And can Ron DeSantis from Florida be on the ticket with him? What do you think?
Well, look, I think we're all asking ourselves that question this week, right? There's these reports coming out. Obviously, the meeting went well between President Trump and DeSantis. And look, no matter what, I think this is a very good thing for the Republican Party. Whether that conversation they had was about him being VP, or whether it's just them working together, moving forward. This is good. This is what we want to see. We want to see the two of them together. These are the two biggest figures in Republican politics in the country. And you've got Donald Trump, our nominee right now, and then, in DeSantis, you have I think, probably a future nominee for President of the United States for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about it. And people are forgetting there's a lot of other positions besides VP potentially in the Trump cabinet or things that are being worked on. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting things moving right now, and I think Ron DeSantis would make an intriguing vice president candidate.
Yeah, I don't know if you see it or not. I was talking about it right before you came on the air. But apparently the 12th Amendment to the Constitution seems to prevent two people from the same state being president and vice president on the ballot.
No, that is correct. And that's why I have spoken with, I don't want to say skepticism, but I think some people have jumped the gun here, saying that DeSantis is the pick. Just because they had a good meeting does not mean it was about a VP situation. Or maybe it was, and we're going to see, like you're talking about, maybe Trump does move to another state. Hey, we take him in Alabama.
Oh, yeah, we would. And absolutely. and I look at it and think, too, you want somebody who can govern on day one for a variety of reasons. Always you want that as a VP. I think Biden did not do that. Biden just pulled someone purely for demographics. But then at the same time, Trump is in his, near 80s. He is also, by the way, under a lot of pressure, and who knows what's going to happen with his illegalities. Having DeSantis on the ticket appears to carry the ball, even if Trump was not there.
Well, and here's a very important point, and this is for anyone who's ever thinking about actually picking, okay, if you're running for president, you're the Republican nominee, and you're like, okay, who do I want as my VP? Something that has to go through your mind is I want someone who is as strong as I am, who the opposition party fears as much or more than they do me. And I think Ron DeSantis is definitely in that category. Look, there's a reason Republicans haven't gone for impeachment on Joe Biden. They don't want Kamala Harris. There's something to taking a nominee that people are just as concerned about as they are you. And I think the liberals are almost as afraid of Ron DeSantis as they are Donald Trump.
So Republicans look for the VP who they should fear because he would do a great job, he or she. And Democrats do it because they fear that they would ever be able to, get over it, and so they put them there as a fire insurance. It's crazy.
This, my friend, is the difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party.
And I don't know if you saw it, by the way. I was lampooning it a little while ago, but Drew Barrymore did an interview with Kamala Harris and it was like this cringy kind of touchy-feely in your personal space. I want you to be the mamala for the world and give us all a hug. And I thought that is the most god-awful thing I've ever seen.
That is actually downright creepy. But look, that is also, in my opinion, Kamala Harris being the vice president is what has really curbed the Democrats from trying to replace Joe Biden as their nominee. They have a hard time going around Kamala Harris if Biden is not, and she probably performs just as bad or worse in the polls.
Oh, yeah, easily bad. Well, more to come on this. Let me ask you one quick question more on politics. There's been a lot of talk about Governor Noem, who, I've always liked her style. I don't know that she'd be the VP, but I've liked her style and the way she governs. But this past week, the whole thing about killing her puppy seems to have really taken a hit. Is that a fatal hit, or is it just one of those flash-in-the-pan moments?
Well, I think it doesn't help because I think she was already, she was already fading a little bit. Her peak was back during the COVID epidemic, and I don't want to take anything away from it. I think she did a tremendous job, stood up for people's rights and freedoms, for their medical freedom, and kind of told the federal government, get out of my state. Those are the types of governors we need. But she's kind of been on a downward, just her publicity level has been a little bit down. I still think she's in the running, though. So if I was going to tell you my short list right now, just my guesses here.
All right.
I would say you've got to put Ron DeSantis in there. You've got to put Kristi Noem in there. You've got to put Tim Scott in there, and I think you got to put Ben Carson in there.
Yeah.
Those would be my top four that I think are the most likely right now. Now that's just me. That's a complete guess. I have no inside information, but I think those are the people I would be looking at.
Okay, I won't tell anybody you told me.
Yeah. Other than our listeners.
Just me and you talking here. Hey, we got about 3 minutes. I want to switch gears on you if you don't mind. We got about 3 or 4 minutes left, and I want to know what in the world with the state library board. I mean, you're one of the governor's appointees.
I am, and I am literally sitting in the APLS headquarters right now with Amy Minton. I believe you know her, representative, fellow board member, and we're looking at. We just got done with public comment, about 6 hours straight of public comment on some code change, and we are looking over letters that people sent in. They're now thinking it's up to possibly 6,000 or 7,000 letters that we have to go through for this public comment period. But the bottom line, unless there's something earth-shattering in here after hearing 6 hours of opinion, I think it is clear to me that something no one can argue against is that sexually explicit material should not be in our children's sections.
Thank you. Can I have some applause on that, please, there, Big Rig? Give me the applause. That's an absolute applause line right there. Shouldn't have to applaud it because it should just be automatic, but there it is.
It should be automatic, and for those who say we should not get involved or let libraries be, my answer is we didn't ask for this battle. It was handed to us when they started putting this material into children's sections. Yeah. And that's just been over the last few years, and that's why this is an issue now.
So you've been hearing public comment today, you said?
That's correct. Started at 10 a.m. this morning.
I'm sure you've been called book burners and the world's coming to an end because the Nazis are taking over the libraries and all that kind of stuff. But has anybody who has been against the idea of removing sexually explicit material from kids' sections, has any one of those been able to say why they desperately want it to be in the kids section?
A fascinating question. That's actually a note, the number one note I have on my sheet. Not a single person could explain or defend why sexually explicit material should be in a children's section.
Yeah, that's just.
There was a lot of name calling. There was. I am definitely a radical, a racist. Think of anything else you want to put there. A Christian. Right-wing nut, a Christian radical, a Christian nationalist. And you know what? Throw the barbs. I think the important thing is that we do the right thing for the children of Alabama.
Yeah, it is. Damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, man. And well, I appreciate you being there along with my friend Amy, who is on the board with you. And she's been attacked quite a bit in the press for merely being somebody who answered the call. Anyway, good on you, Chairman Wall, and keep us posted on how that comes out, all right?
Will do. It's always good to be on the show.
All right, thanks so much for making time. Appreciate it.
Yep.
How about that? He calls us from the library board where he's down there still reviewing, and I guess he had to step out of the room to take the call. Very cool. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We'll switch gears, talk about Biden burning some bridges, and I'll take a whole bunch of text messages. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. I mean, like saving the world, one soundbite at a time. Listen, I got, by the way, a brief bit of breaking news for you. So the gambling bill you've heard so much about down in Montgomery, the complete debacle package of expansion of casinos and everything else in the world, and giving criminals sort of a reward for having broken the law long enough to be able to hang them there and get a bill passed in their name. That bill has been sort of in a hiatus. The House passed it immediately. It was an embarrassingly bad piece of legislation. I don't care how you feel about gaming. Everything about the way that bill was put together was anti-Republican. Just absolutely. But they ran it through in the very first week of the legislative session. We are down to the final few days of the session. The Senate took that bill, if you remember, and changed it completely. Took out all the casino language, made it a pure lottery, and they had something about freezing those gambling assets that currently exist in the state, but no expansion. That's my recollection. So the Senate had basically an entirely different view of things, and the House and the Senate then got mad at each other. When you pass two bills like that don't jibe, you have to do what's called going to conference. Now, you can let it die. You can choose to do nothing. But if there's any hope at all of passage of something, it has to do with what's called going to conference. That's where they sit down and sort of mediate their differences. Well, we'll do this. Well, we're not going to do that, but we'll do this. Okay, we'll do. And they go back and forth. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The only way it can move forward then is if it comes out of conference and the caucuses have agreed, we will accept those changes, and then do what's called concurring by vote of the body. So a concurrence could happen today. Whoa. I mean, as of yesterday, I would have said the bills were dead. The gambling bill was dead this year. But we're hearing right now, breaking news, I've got friends in Montgomery who are texting me saying, hey man, the bills went into conference today, and they actually met. And right now, the House has recessed for the sole purpose of going to meet together as a caucus to see whether they will agree, before going out to the floor, whether they will agree to the things that are whatever coming out of the caucus. I'm still waiting on details, but I will tell you that right now, the gambling bill got a new batch of life. It's like the zombie legislation. It never quite goes away. I'll let you know when I find out something more. Could be big doings. We may know something today on what is going to happen. Will they have it all this session? Will it be a modified version? Are they going to find some common ground? Are they still fighting over it? I don't know. We get some text messages here. Going back to the issues at hand here on the show. By the way, the lovely Charlene just sent me a text. She says, just tell us the gambling bill news. I just did, baby. I just did. That's all I know. I told you everything I know. I don't know what else to say. Now I feel pressured. What did I forget? I don't know. It's anyway. Mike from Huntsville texted in and says DeSantis would be wasted at the VP seat at the kids' table of the federal offices. He's much more valuable as a governor. I don't disagree, man. The only thing I think that DeSantis has to consider is whether or not, if somebody goes in there as a Trump VP in 4 years, they are in the driver's seat for running for the nomination. Could a vice president pick one? Could a Vice President Tim Scott be supplanted by a term-limited Ron DeSantis? He won't be able to run again. He'll be term-limited under Florida law for running for governor for a third term. So it's either out of politics or he does something different or runs for president against somebody else who was VP. So I don't know. Plus, there's always the possibility, though, with everything going on with Trump, that Trump could get elected and then be out of office within a short time. And Ron DeSantis could be there in the wings waiting to become the president. I don't know. And it's a lot to consider. A lot to consider. We'll see. Dustin from Hillsborough says, unlike Biden, Governor Noem doesn't let her dog bite other people. Wow. Dustin from Hillsborough just went there. Jeff from Town Creek says, hi, Phil. Just to, well, I think your voice text is not working for you there, Jeff. I think Trump wants to offer it to Hillary, but she wouldn't take it. No. John from Huntsville. Hey, say, Phil, here's a Drew Barrymore trivia question. Do you know what she did on the David Letterman show that became very controversial? I cannot recall. John, but I remember something years ago. You're welcome to text it in. If I can read it on the air, I will. Ron from Tuscumbia says either DeSantis or Abbott. Okay. I like it. Yeah, Governor Abbott from Texas would definitely be a good one. Matthew from Trinity says they can't both be from Florida. I wish DeSantis was the nominee. Okay, Matthew. He's not, though, brother. But we're wondering whether he could be the vice presidential nominee and be on the ticket. Mike from Athens says, I seen it all day when I lived in California. He's talking about letting illegals vote. Okay, that's a different topic altogether. But okay, brother. Appreciate it. And then Devin from Brownsboro says, Trump McQueen. Trump McQueen? I don't think so. I didn't get a couple of them further down from earlier in the show. Wendy from Moulton said about college football unionizing. If college football teams unionize, and they make demands or strikes, can the university just say, no, we're not negotiating. We'll replace said players with some thousands of kids that want to play football. Scab players. Awesome. It's like that movie, The Replacements. Chicks dig scars. It's all good. And then Roughly Ann from Huntsville says Speedy Gonzalez, and she sent a little logo for you of Speedy Gonzalez. All right, listen, last couple, then we'll head to the break. Joe from Elkmont says, have you heard anything about Agenda 47? No, I have not. Thank you, Joe. And then Mark from Laredo, Tennessee says Carrie Lake is the best choice for VP. I don't know, man. I mean, I think Carrie Lake would wear some people out. I'm pretty sure Carrie Lake, you do a mixed martial arts match with her and Kamala Harris, we know who comes out on top. But I don't think Carrie Lake's going to be a VP pick. She's got great street cred on her presence. She's got no street cred on her ability to govern. She has always been the perpetual candidate, never having won a race. So you have to look at it and go, at some point, you can't bring on somebody just because they ran for something once. You have to bring on somebody who could say, here's what I do, here's what I did, and here's what I'll do for you if I'm there. All right, what a great segue. We're going to come right back, and we're going to go international. Joe Biden, burning bridges left and right. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down some major ground with a hot mic around the northern parts of the greatest state in the nation. This one right here, Alabama. I mean, this show, y'all, goes way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, I got to tell you who else covers a lot of ground. Our friends at Southern Immediate Care. So Southern Immediate Care is a chain of clinics that covers, like I said, a lot of ground across North Alabama, places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 6 more locations around the Birmingham area. And oh, by the way, I'm hearing there's more coming. But Southern Immediate Care is open 7 days a week at all their locations, and they will see all ages. So I like to always say pediatric to geriatric. They'll see them all. And this is who I use personally. No kidding. This is who I use personally, and I have for quite some time. And I asked them to advertise because I can brag on this. I can brag on this. Every time I walk in here, it's clean, professional, friendly, and it's like this at all your locations. This is amazing. So yeah, I have no problem calling out my friends at Southern Immediate Care as being like really worthy of your time. If you need medical attention, even on a Saturday morning, you just head on down there, find the location nearest to you, and tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that very much. Southern Immediate Care, all over North Alabama. So I'm in this last dipper now. I'm calling it Biden burning bridges. He does. Joe Biden has been said to be wrong on nearly every foreign policy decision over the last 40 years. Who said that? I believe that was Robert Gates, the former Secretary of Defense. He says Joe Biden has been wrong on nearly every foreign policy decision in the last 40 years. Supposedly, Joe Biden is like a foreign policy guru, chaired the Committee on Foreign Relations. Yeah, how about that? How about this? Story on National Review. 1975. He was one of the leading voices in the Senate to abandon South Vietnam. We did. Weeks later, after him saying that he thought it was our moral obligation to quit sending any aid, Saigon fell and Cambodia went into genocide. 1987, he attacked the Reagan doctrine for being too confrontational with Soviet Russia. 2 years before President Reagan gave his famous speech calling on Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down the wall. Yeah, we all know who won that one. The wall came down and the Cold War ended. The Soviet Union fell. 1991, Biden voted against the Gulf War to force Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. How about this? In 2010, as a vice president with Barack Obama, he oversaw the drawdown of troops in Iraq that was so badly managed that it wound up giving ISIS the ability to take over half the country, and we had to send U.S. troops back in. 2011, he opposed the raid against that killed Osama bin Laden. Great. Told Barack Obama it was too risky. 2012, he mocked Mitt Romney's Cold War mindset about the former Soviet Union and Vladimir Putin, who then, oh, by the way, a couple of years later invaded and took over the Crimea and is now fighting in Ukraine. So basically, Biden's got like zero judgment in terms of foreign policy. But what he's doing now is even worse. What he's doing now is burning bridges like you would not believe. Before I do that, I'll just jump on a phone call real quick. I see I got Brian from Huntsville on the line. Brian, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, sir. And first of all, I appreciate the clarification on DeSantis and his term limits as governor in Florida.
Yeah.
And based on that, I'm saying, please, Trump, change your residence, keep your land, and get DeSantis in there, because the two are so alike, it's ridiculous in so many ways.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great ticket. It'd be amazing.
I think it would be too. And plus, on top of that, I would not mind having an Airbnb opened up in some of the parts of Mar-a-Lago and getting to take opportunity of that.
I'm with you, man. Let's go use some of that gold that golden staircase that we. Yep. Yeah. All right. Appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Take care. Goodbye.
All right, back on the Biden burning bridges. So I gave you a minute ago kind of a rundown of some of the debacles in Biden's foreign policy life. Yeah. Pretty much wrong on every foreign policy decision over the last 40 years, and now he's president. Wow. And his administration is, intensely focused on things that matter. around the world. Like, how about this one? NBC News, February of 2021. He had not even been in office like 2 weeks. President Joe Biden issued a historic memorandum committing the United States to promoting LGBTQ rights on the international stage. Well, now we got the Houthis shooting rebels or shooting missiles at us. But heck, those gay Houthis can really feel comfortable knowing that their rights are now secure. He did. He issued the memorandum on advancing the human rights of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex persons around the world. Your Biden White House, the State Department. Wonderful thing. How about this story that came out just yesterday? When you've lost the United Nations and you're a liberal, something's wrong. When you've lost the support of the UN as a liberal, you know you have really stepped in it hard. But the Daily Caller has a piece saying that a top UN advisor is warning the Biden administration not to follow through with its new Title IX regime. So you may recall that the Biden administration has decided to rewrite Title IX in terms of its interpretations. And they will now say transgenders must be allowed to play in girls' sports, and they must be allowed to have access to girls' locker rooms in schools and colleges all over the nation. Wonderful. However, the Biden administration is also being called out now because this could have effects on an international scale. Yeah, the United Nations says doing so is going to fail women and girls. Like I said, when you've lost the United Nations, you're beginning to burn bridges left and right. But then I look at what they're doing to Israel. Y'all, between Israel and things that are happening in Africa, I have to look at it and think, what is the point here to just make sure that we have no allies left on the world stage? Is that what we need? Because, I mean, you were trying to make things better with Iran, so you took the Houthis, when you first got elected, Joe, you took them off the terrorist list, and now we've had to put them back on a couple of years later because they're shooting rockets at us on a regular basis. Oh, by the way, using funding that they're getting from Iran. Oh, by the way, they got the money in the funding from you, Joe, because we had sanctions on them before you got elected. Hezbollah feels emboldened. Hamas did what it did last year. And yet our ally in the middle of all this, the counterweight to Iran's influences in the Middle East, has long been Israel. And yet the Biden administration decided, in the middle of Israel being at war, speaking out of one side of their mouth saying, we support Israel, knowing full well you've got anti-Semitism going madness right now on college campuses all over the United States. The Biden administration took the unprecedented step this week to label 5 units in the Israeli military as being violators of human rights. Let that sink in. Violators of human rights. You just now labeled them as being on par with like Libya under Gaddafi. You just literally said, Joe Biden, that our ally Israel, who's at war right now with people who beheaded babies and gang raped women on October 7th, you are now saying, well, by the way, we feel it necessary in the middle of all of this to really make Israel look bad by saying that here's a quote. The U.S. found 5 units of the Israeli Defense Forces responsible for individual incidents of gross violations of human rights. Why would you do this? First of all, I believe it's questionable. But secondly, you have to look at it and go, come on. This is our ally in the world. This is our chief democracy senior ally that we recognized first before anybody else did in 1948 in the Middle East. This is the ally that we go to for information in the Middle East. This is the one that we were, by the way, protecting at one point and now relying upon. And we had the Abraham Accords in place. We had peace like we had never seen it before breaking out in the Middle East. Iran was mitigated down to the point of being almost nothingness, and then Biden took office, and in his classic fashion, his foreign policy began to burn bridges. He immediately turned the tables and made sure that Iran had funding. They began to then upfund their proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. And now, in the middle of a war, with terrorists who are the true violators of human rights, he decides to publicly name multiple units in the Israeli Defense Force as being alleged violators of human rights, doing nothing but trying to placate the pro-Hamas crowd. There is no other reason for doing this except to say, hey, all you people rioting at Columbia and breaking into buildings, like, let's don't be too mad at us because, like, we went ahead and we called out some Israeli stuff. See, we made sure that you knew that we thought they were mean. They're just mean. Absolutely the most asinine foreign policy I've ever seen. And then there's Africa. Folks, a lot of folks don't realize it, but the what's known as the Sahel region in northern Africa is a hotbed of terrorism. You've got Boko Haram, you've got any number of other wild factions, and you've got Niger, which is a country that we've been trying to help, and we spent like $1 billion trying to assist Niger in stability. Niger, by the way, went through a coup last year, and a military junta took charge. We have like 1,000 U.S. troops in Niger, right next door to Chad, where we also have a lot of influence. We've been training their military. We've been upgrading their facilities. We've been putting in airstrips. We've been sending our U.S. troops there for the ability to do, what they call JSETs, or joint capabilities exercises, where we work together and we try to train them. And somehow or another, dozens of Russian military instructors arrived in Niger just this month, according to foreignpolicy.com. Yeah. I mean, we've seen this in other parts of the world, right? But suddenly, Russian military instructors are in Niger. And the new ruling junta in Niger decided it's time for the U.S. to leave. Joe Biden can't even keep our allies who we spend $1 billion on happy. The U.S. withdrawal from Niger, by the way, is like part of a broader trend across the region. And if we have 1,000 U.S. troops there right now, and we're about to bring an end to our military presence after spending all that money, what it basically means is the Russian advisors are now going to step in, use the things that we built, and we're going to have no eyes and ears on a hotbed of international terrorism. It's a mess, y'all. Joe Biden burns bridges everywhere he goes. Joe Biden has no foreign policy. He is a man who has, by the statements made by his own former Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, he is a man who has been woefully wrong on nearly every major foreign policy decision for the last 4 decades. And he's in charge of our foreign policy, and he is burning bridges everywhere he goes. Let's take the last break of the day. We'll do that right now, and we will come right back. Oh, my gosh, I got some text messages to get, and we'll just put a wrap on it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. I mean, like making common sense like a superpower. Oh, man, I tell you what, wait to see what happens down in Montgomery, but we're hearing right now they're trying to bum rush a compromise gambling bill to the floor for concurrence, perhaps even this afternoon. Reading right now online that the compromise gambling plan has a lottery. Money goes to education, which is always like the joke, and that's what they do to basically lure people in. You can do it for the children. It's for the education. It would allow slot machines at the dog track casinos and maybe have a compact with the Porch Creeks Indians. No sports betting, no expansion of other casinos. This is, in my opinion, a debacle, and you Republicans ought to be ashamed of yourself. We'll see where it goes. I got a caller on the line. Let me get that real quick. Jeff from Indiana. Hey, bro, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm trying to get through Nashville anyway.
You're on the northbound track, huh?
It's like I'm surrounded by a bunch of little Bidens out here driving around. None of them have a clue.
Well, what's on your mind, man? What do you think about this stuff? Who's going to be the VP? What do you think about the foreign policy? What are you thinking?
Well, I'm worried about the next pandemic here we're going through.
The next one?
Yeah, we're pretty much into it right now, but nobody's, alerted anybody to it. I think I should be alerting people. So,
is this the pandemic of the? Go ahead.
Pandemic of the stupidity, and I mean, half of this nation's been affected. I think what we need to do is instead of I think the CDC are to say that instead you don't need to wear a mask. But everybody should be wearing noise-canceling headphones so you can't hear all the stupidity coming out of the White House.
It's every day, man. I don't know where it starts and stops sometimes. I mean, it just kind of bleeds over from one day to the next. But right now with everything that we talked about today, you can look at the top of the ticket in the Biden administration. You can see why they feel so empowered. I mean, you've got not high school, but you've got college kids unionizing in college football. You've got Biden's foreign policy is calling out Israel and making them like they're the bad guys. And then you've got, who's going to be VP right now, but yet Kamala Harris is his VP. Wow.
Well, I know that's never been done before, but we're going to have to start criminalizing stupidity. And Joe Biden, he should be charged with first-degree stupidity and probably jailed for life. Cause, I mean, if it's a crime what he's doing. I mean, you can't make up this stuff, where we say that, women's sports, and because of somebody's got somebody it's a middle issue that they're now a woman.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
It goes on and on and on, and they're even trying to ship it overseas. I mean, the whole idea that the Biden would issue a memorandum that supports transgender rights in foreign countries. I'm like, why? What are you doing? I mean, it makes us a laughing stock.
I wonder how many rights they get when they're over there and all these Arab countries throwing them off the top of tall buildings,
Yeah, all these rainbow protesters saying queers for Palestine. They would fool around and find out real quick how that goes.
Yeah, it'd be like, oh, look, there goes another flying rainbow off the 5th floor.
Oh, boy. All right, man, I got about 45 seconds before I get off the air, but you have a great trip back, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, bud. Have a good one.
We'll see you. Last couple here. Thomas Mathis says the 5 IDF units violated human rights, plus labeling Israel as the worst violator above China, Niger, and Russia. Plus, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, may judge Netanyahu and the IDF generals as war criminals. And then UA cannot send money to Israel. U.S., I think it means. Plus, will be open season on Israeli president and generals from all the crazy countries in the UN. I agree, Thomas. It's a mess, man. It's an absolute mess. Thank you, Joe Biden. You made this. Rock from Huntsville says the Biden administration has been pushing LGBTQ MOUSE in Africa. There's many African countries that have refused this and are dealing with China and Russia instead. I'm not sure that's the only reason, but it doesn't help. Steve from Huntsville says, Colonel, the people with the guns make the rules. Israeli soldiers are required to keep their arms on them on vacation. Question is, What can we do when our government does something so tragic as to turn their back on Israel or other allies? Please don't say elections, because the way these people are leading this country, we may not be able to wait. Nah, that's what you got, brother. That's what you got. All right, listen, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Amazing show. More tomorrow. We'll see you then.